Shalom and blessings, everybody. I hope y'all are well. It's May the 19th of 2026. Emotional debt is part of the wealth transfer that Father is currently exchanging at the moment. And tonight I want to talk about the nervous system. I want to talk about generational bondage, emotional debt, and what that means. Many of us have lived decades in emotional debt, serving, paying wages for unprocessed emotions. When the nervous system is dysregulated, we love from a pattern of reactivity and not stability, because the nervous system responds to pattern. We love from a place of pattern and not stability when the nervous system is dysregulated. Heavenly Father, in the mighty name of YAHshaYAH HaMashiach, I lift you high. Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. We need you. I invite your presence into this video. Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, rest upon me. Grant me the words and the wisdom to articulate divine revelation. I thank you for the privilege and the honor just to understand what I can understand. The heavens cannot contain you. Neither can our feeble minds. But I'm so grateful for constant revelation, constant access into your presence, and the education on how to heal. I want to thank you. I want to bless you. I speak with the pure vibration of love. I speak with the pure vibration of truth. And may my voice resound into the atmosphere of those whom this video is meant to reach with the key of David and the sound of my voice. I place the cloak of invisibility over our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our hearts. Lord, I affirm that healing will commence in the mighty name of YAHshaYAH HaMashiach. Amen. So Father is we are in an era of healing. But what that looks like is totally different from what we probably would think that it should look like. A lot of us are paying wages of unprocessed emotions because we haven't dealt with things properly. And maybe it's because we didn't know how. Maybe it's because at the moment of trauma, at the moment of something going down that was hurtful, whether that be abandonment, whether that be neglect in some way, emotional abuse, narcissism, whether it be something happening and you crying and someone telling you to stop crying, that emotion, those emotions were interrupted. Therefore, the completion of the processing of those emotions was halted. And when that happens, these emotions are stored in the body and they just sit there. But they don't just stay in one place. They stay in the body, but they start to affect other systems in the body. So some people have gone decades upon decades carrying emotional burden and baggage that they don't know how to get rid of. Some of us are carrying things right now that we don't know how to get rid of. And I say we because I'm in this healing phase as well. And when we do this, the collateral is the nervous system. Our body is the interest for this because it shows up as tension in the neck and the back, pain in between the shoulder blades, loss of flexibility in the hips. All of a sudden, your immune system is breaking down. Your nervous system is living in a constant state of danger. And it becomes so normal that anything that looks similar to that event that brought on this trigger, anything that looks similar, it's categorized as danger. Crying can be danger if someone told you not to cry, and that was how your body naturally responded to that event or circumstance. Now crying is danger. And so if this happened when you were a child, then you grow up into adulthood suppressing your tears because your nervous system learned this pattern as a sign of weakness, a sign of it's wrong. You're not supposed to cry. And that's wrong because crying is a natural process. Crying is a release. Crying helps us to detox. So it's telling the body to do something opposite of what it was created to do. Now, when I talk about this emotional debt, this stuff is profound because triggers don't just show up. Let me just say this. We like to use the phrase, they push my buttons. We'll say it in a minute. Ooh, they push my buttons today. But the buttons didn't just show up. The person that caused that trigger didn't create the trigger. The trigger was already there because of something that happened, whether it was during childhood, whether it was during the teenage years, adolescence, adulthood. That trigger showed up somewhere. And when it happened, the matter was unresolved. And over time, what actually happened becomes buried and suppressed. And so now, every time something similar happens or presents itself, that same affliction, that same pain, that same embarrassment, that same emotion arises. And if it happened when you were 3, it's not only a memory, your mind goes back to that's the state of mind that you were in when you were 3 years old. For example, if a teacher embarrassed you, if a parent yelled at you in front of people and you felt shame, if a spouse or an ex cheated on you or betrayed you, the list can go on. However it happened, every time something familiar, a familiar sign of something that has happened to you shows up, it's almost like you're stuck in a loop of time because you're going back to this thing. You're going back to that moment. And what happens is someone who doesn't even know what you are suffering from will say something or do something, and it will trigger that very pain that you've been avoiding. And here you are laying in the bed at night, running this conversation through your mind. You having an argument with this person in your mind, or these people, because maybe you didn't respond the way you wanted to in reality. But this conversation at 2 or 3 in the morning that you're thinking about is running through your head, and you win in this conversation, but you lose in sleep. And you start to realize that you're saying this person pushed my button, but the button was already planted from what happened when you were 3 years old, or maybe when you were 16 years old. It don't matter what age it was. From the initial onset, that button was planted. And when people don't know what we're dealing with, it's as if, because if we don't understand how to protect our energy, it's like we're giving people the remote to freely press the button. So we're handing people the remote so they can just press the button. And every time they press that button, trigger. Then there's an explosion because the reaction comes. There's no rationing, there's reaction. Okay? So what happens is we find ourselves exhausted, irritated, frustrated, angry. Because we keep allowing the emotional mind to explode. Not M-I-N-D, the minefield. The emotional mind is like a landmine. Every time somebody presses a button, explosion. Every time somebody triggers something that reminds you of the abandonment, explosion. It's the same thing over and over and over. Then you find yourself asking the question, why doesn't it bother them the way it bothers me? Because see, you keep microwaving this thing. You keep playing it over and over and over again. You keep reheating it like cold pizza, but not eating. You let the pizza get cold and put it back in the microwave. It gets cold again. You're not eating. Nobody's forcing you to eat the pizza. Nobody's forcing you to reheat it. But that's what it's like when we continue, when we get stuck. And it's hard. It's a hard cycle to break. So I'm bringing awareness to this because what happens is we get stuck in a loop of time. And it keeps replaying over and over again, almost as if, like we used to have VHSs back in the day. You put a tape in and you get to a certain spot and you just keep rewinding that spot and rewinding that spot and rewinding that spot. Me talking about the cold pizza is basically continuing to, when we have unprocessed emotions and we are triggered by them, when we don't take the time to understand where we need healing, it's like we're reheating that pizza. We're not eating it. And you keep reheating something, it's going to get hard, it's going to get stale, it's going to get rubbery, it's going to lose the flavor, it's going to lose the moisture, it's going to lose all of those things because it's getting nuked in the microwave. This is what our anger does too. the unprocessed emotions when we don't deal with them properly, or we didn't get a chance to, because maybe at the time when it happened, you were a child and you were in your parents' house, you couldn't go anywhere. Or maybe it was a spouse or something, and you were in the home with that spouse and you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything. Or maybe, it's a situation where you've had to deal with these things alone for so long. You don't have anyone to help you process things. Just the presence of someone who can be there to feel like a safe space. These unhealthy patterns, they become normal to us because that's what we're used to. And if emotions aren't processed properly, then the things that we actually are avoiding, the pain, the triggers that we're avoiding, is exactly what life is built around, because that's the only familiar thing you know. That's the thing that's familiar to you. So a comfort zone is not really a comfort zone. It's just what's familiar. Even if that familiarity is danger, even if the familiarity is toxicity. Father, what he's doing in this hour is very great. And I'm coming on to share this because there is what is, when I say he created us fearfully and wonderfully, like the word says in Psalm 139, Father created our bodies to do exactly what they needed to do. If we search him for understanding of the internal kingdom, our brains have what is called neuroplasticity. And it's the ability to reform and stabilize with new and healthy patterns. When the nervous system is living in constant fight or flight mode, when we begin to change, when we begin to try to make a change from something that is toxic, something that is unstable, in order for it to change, it actually has to go through that stage or that obstacle of being triggered in order to overcome it. So you have to face the pain. You have to face what you've been avoiding to get through it. I said this in the video a long time ago, a few years ago, about the story. I can't even remember what it's a story that they read in school about. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. Or you can't go over it. You can't go under it. You have to go through it. I think I'm saying it right. I don't know, but y'all know what I'm talking about. But the nervous system has to go through the process of being triggered in order to change. And if it's been responding or reacting compulsively out of the same habits, it has to go through pain or the affliction that it's been avoiding so that it could reset itself. I hope what I'm saying is making sense to y'all, okay? Because it's like driving a car. The process of the nervous system resetting, relearning, having to shut down and stop and then start again. It's like driving a car. We don't know how many mechanisms go into stopping a car. All we do is push a brake pedal. But all of the functions that tie into that car stopping when we touch the brake pedal, this involves inertia. Okay? It takes a lot of force for a car to stop. And so when your nervous system is trying to unlearn healthy patterns and toxicity, it literally has to slow down, it has to stop, and it has to observe in order for the neuroplasticity to reform its stability. Observing means, for instance, if you're trying to express your emotions to somebody and you're over explaining, you're doing the best you can to get it out. And instead of understanding, you're met with the conversation ending and you defending yourself, or you feeling defeated because you're trying to, it's a cry for help. You're trying to get someone to understand you, but rather it's completely misunderstood, almost dismissed, and now you're stuck defending yourself because the conversation turned into you having to defend why you feel the way you feel. This all is connected to the kingdom within, the internal kingdom, understanding your nervous system, understanding your brain, and what God is doing in this hour. See, this wealth transfer that I keep saying he's exchanging, because he's giving us abundance for poverty. The poverty mindset we've been living in, the poverty, the lack of this is not just financial, is what I'm trying to say. This emotional debt has been passed down from generation to generation because the parents may not have understood any of this, right? They went through things as well. So they could only give what they had, and you can't give what you don't have. You can't aid someone through something you don't know about. So their unresolved trauma has been suppressed, and they built a life around everything they were trying to avoid, around everything they experienced, anything that screamed danger. The lives were built around that. And so as a child, your nervous system, from the time you are born, the first 7 years, your nervous system is learning the program. We really don't get a fair chance growing up to really train our own nervous system, because we grow up as a product of the environment. So whatever environment you are growing up in, it could be a house where you are supported, you are praised for your gifts and your talents. You make a mistake, you're not criticized for it. You're actually sat down and taught that it's okay to make a mistake, but you're also told how to make it better. Not made to feel shameful for something that you didn't know how to do. You actually are taught how to do it. When your gifts and talents, you have a light, right? When you have gifts and talents, you have a light that shines. And when people see that light, when you're growing up in an environment where people are supporting you, they're going to help you amplify that light. This builds a foundation for a character that knows how to love and treat others with love and respect. And this sets the tone for, a friendship, a relationship, a household in the adult life, and vice versa. As I said earlier, if crying brought punishment, if your light was too bright, you had to minimize yourself. If you had to walk on eggshells just to keep people comfortable, because you didn't want to talk too loud because you might say something right and it may offend somebody. Or, you didn't want to smile too hard because you might be too happy, and someone else who might not have been happy may get offended because of your joy. Like things like that. These are the things that I'm talking about as far as emotional debt. We carry these things in our body, and our body, after a while, begins to respond by physical signs of pain, immune system breaking down. The Lord is trying to show us how to heal, and it starts with understanding how and why you're triggered. The emotional wealth transfer that's taking place is God exchanging our lack of knowledge for wisdom. He's turning our ashes into beauty. Isaiah 61 is what he's doing right now, but it's not coming in the form that we want it in. And as he's doing this, he brought this to me today. The next time that something happens, and it takes work, y'all. It's not gonna happen overnight. It may not happen the first time, but he brought this to me earlier today. The next time that something happens in life and it feels like you're triggered, how do you observe? How do you become an observer when you're triggered? He says he encourages us to write things down. Maybe for the next 7 days, whoever this is for. If you feel like you're constantly triggered, you feel like you're constantly in a battle, internal battle, emotional conflict that nobody else understands, for the next 7 days, if you can withstand it, write down every single time you're triggered on a piece of paper. Everything that you're triggered by, write it down. At the end of that not just that, but when you're triggered, you write down who's involved each time you're triggered. Who's involved in this triggering, okay? At the end of that 7 days, you go back and look at everything you wrote down, whatever's connected to it. Try to remember where this trigger began from the very beginning, okay? Not just what you're triggered by, but when you sit and you look and you write down what you're triggered by and then who's involved, then you go back and try to find the source of where it all began. This begins the healing process. Because see, then when you can find the source, you can learn how to protect yourself and your energy and your heart. He tells us to guard our heart because the issues of life flow from it. And the next time that something asserts itself, rears its head, before you react and blow up, and I'm going to give another example in a minute, you'll be able to stop for a minute and pause. When I say you will be able to eventually, because it takes time, but try to stop and pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, why am I triggered right now? What is it that was said that is causing me the discomfort? And then you take a look, because most time when we write these things down, we'll notice that it's not a lot of triggers. It's the same few triggers that keep cycling itself. Maybe just a few. They keep cycling themselves. So finding the root cause of these triggers helps us understand how to get out of that emotional debt by actually dealing with them. So next time it comes, you don't avoid it. You don't have to let it in, because you'll learn to set boundaries. But you also learn that You have to teach the nervous system that feelings are going to arise, and that's okay. Even if it's anger, they're going to arise, but we don't shut them off. We don't harbor them. You allow yourself to be present in the moment. Now, I'm not telling nobody to go and start acting crazy with folks because you're angry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about sitting with yourself and being real with yourself and saying, right now, that made me angry. And when you do that, you'll start to see that healing comes when you learn to be present instead of pushing these things away and pretending that they're not happening or trying to avoid the pain and the affliction. Sitting with the pain brings healing. An example of how to find the source is, just say, I don't know, a parent or a spouse forgot your birthday. Just making an example, forgot your birthday. And inside yourself, you're saying, am I not important? Do they not care about me? On the outside, it comes out in the form of an attack to the person. Well, you didn't care about me anyway. And then you sit there and that festers. And instead of dealing with, where that actually came from, because the root of it is something made you feel unimportant at some point in your life. Something made you feel like somebody didn't care about you. And so you process the question in your mind, but the response and the reaction is an attack. Father is trying to give us wisdom and knowledge. This is a wealth transfer of knowledge on how to overcome emotional debt, how to free ourselves from emotional debt, because the longer we harbor unforgiveness, the longer we harbor resentment and bitterness in our heart, the longer we harbor all of these low frequency emotions, our nervous system is paying the toll. The body is taxed, and emotions don't expire. That's the thing we have to learn. They don't expire. They're not just going to go away, because life proves that they don't just go away, because we build our life around things that we want to avoid. And when we see something or feel something familiar, we automatically go into danger mode, fight or flight mode. Cortisol levels are elevated. There's a whole system that goes into this. The Lord is trying to teach us how to regulate our nervous system. Jesus did it. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but he did. He would go around all these people. Think about it. He would go around all these crowds. Every time he went around a big crowd, what did he do? He retreated by himself. And he sat in prayer. He sat in stillness. He was regulating his nervous system. He had to deal with the Pharisees, the arrogant people. He sat with sinners on purpose. Because you know what? Most of the time when people feel insignificant, they're very humble. There was a reason why Jesus sat with sinners and people who were looked at as unworthy in the eyes of man. Their hearts were humble. But Jesus did the same thing. He knew how to withdraw. He meditated. It tells us in the Bible all the time that we are to meditate. That means simply sit in stillness and quiet your mind. Father is giving wealth of knowledge to heal the nervous system. There's so much more of this to come, but I felt like I needed to share this tonight. And I hope that it blesses whoever is supposed to bless. It may seem a little all over the place for y'all, but I needed to come on and share that, what I just talked about. Let this mind be in you, which also was in Christ Jesus. I pray this blesses y'all. Until next time, shalom.